Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another awesome episode of Parenting is Easy, Said No One Ever. I am your host, Chananya Abraham, and I just had the opportunity to speak to such an amazing woman, Heidi, who is a single parent, an entrepreneur, building her own business, has an awesome coaching program. We touch on so many topics that I think we talked about some of them here, but when we talk about resilience, we talk about communication. But I think when it comes to being a single parent, there are so many things that are important for us to talk about and to think about and to put on the table that we're not alone with when it comes to how to communicate with their father or how to communicate with the school system that has the different people that they should be meeting with or they should be communicating with. And when it comes to religion, when it comes to dealing with things at home that we're trying to give over to our kids. Some awesome topics that we had in this conversation with Heidi, and I hope you enjoy listening to it as much as I enjoyed recording it. As always, please like and subscribe wherever you are listening to the podcast. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, or just want to send me an emoji, please do so. Find us on social media at Parenting is Easy, said no one, the number one ever, or you can email us at parentingiseasypodcast@gmail.com. Enjoy the episode. So thank you so much for joining us today, Heidi. This has been an absolute, it took us so long to try to finally make this happen, and I'm so glad we did, because I think the topic that we're talking about today, single parenting and how we can go about it both at home and as a business owner, I think is really, really important. So thank you for joining us. I'm curious, as we get started over here, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and this topic specifically and how it's something that's near and dear to you?
Yes. And thank you, Chananya, for having me and for being putting this together. Because like you said, it was a little bit of a challenge, but we made it happen. I'm so excited for this. So it was meant to be. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business strategy coach. And the way this whole, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I never knew how it would happen. And about 6 years ago, I found myself navigating through a divorce. And so the reason that I pursued this space is because I do have 2 children. They were young at the time. And I wanted to be home with them. So very quickly into figuring out what I was going to do next, because up until this time, I had been a stay-at-home mom. And my children were 7 and 8 when we were moving through this new chapter. And I was heavily involved with their kids and with their schools and their daily activities up until that point. I was taking them to school every day, picking them up, after school activities, a homeroom mom for both kids, co-chair of the auction committee for 2 years in a row. So I was very heavily intertwined with
you
their
were
kids.
busy.
Yeah, I was busy. And now I'm like, okay, now I get to create an income, because I didn't have to really worry about that before. So I was like, what am I going to do? And I was online and I found coaching, and I was like, okay, well, this will fit my needs, because very quickly I figured that the one thing that's going to, whatever I want to do, I want to be home with my kids. I knew a lot was changing for them, and I wanted to keep that piece as consistent as possible. Now, I'm not saying that happened overnight. I did work 2 jobs as I was building, but I always kept true to that why and connected to that why, because yes, we want to make money. That's a great why to have. But at the end of the day, I could keep working 2 jobs and make money, right? But the why that kept pushing me forward when I was navigating the bumpy roads of building a business was that I wanted to be home with them. And through that, there was a lot of navigation and challenges around single parenting along the way, which I'm sure we'll get into.
So there are a lot of things that we'd love to unpack. And the really first thing that comes to mind is this topic of your why. What does that mean? And can you explain in general what it means for you and how you would, I guess, deliver that to others?
Well, for me, it was more of an entrepreneurship, though. But I'll talk into the general for anyone listening, no matter whatever goals you have, whether it's creating, moving forward and putting together, like you have a bucket list of a vacation that you want to take your family on, or you have a house that you want to buy, right? Like whatever
you're talking about, I'll make sure that everyone has a why. Find your why.
Find your why, because no matter what you are wanting to accomplish, you always need to come back to that why, because no matter what you want to create, it's not going to be easy. There's going to be challenges that are going to come up. Life is going to happen. Life happens. And many times it happens for us and not to us, but we don't see that in the moment. So when we're connected to our purpose of why we want this goal or to achieve this next step, that's where you get to connect to that why. And I always say it gets to be a why that makes you cry. Money doesn't make me cry. Like money is great, but what is it the reason that you want to make the money or you want to achieve the goal? Is it to retire your spouse? Is it to be home with your kids? Is it to be able to afford like health insurance or anything like that? So really going deeper. And I think what the one takeaway I'd love for people to have when you're finding your why, don't settle on that first level of where you go to, because that's your surface response. You get to go deeper. And sometimes it could take multiple times of revisiting and going, okay, I want the money. What is the money going to get me? Okay, what is that going to get for us? And then keep going deeper until you really land on it. Because if your heart's not being tugged on, if you're not getting emotional and you're not getting misty-eyed over that why, you're not deep enough.
So what you're saying is when a person is looking for something and they say, well, my why is I need to make money. That's the surface. That's like level one. I'm like, okay, so why do you need to make money? And that's something that is important for a person to look at. What would be your example of you needing something? Because there's so much that you had going for you, and then all of a sudden things change, and now you have to you're turn on your head just regarding how to live your life and what your focus is on a daily basis. So your why changed on an instinct, but at the same time, what I'm hearing you say is your life was your kids, and your life is your kids, and you want while that consistency, which we're going to get back to, is important. I think also there's a level of realizing things change, and that's okay, and that's I think a part of what the journey is. And when you ask yourself the question, okay, so what's my why? Well, you make money. No, it's not just about making money. What's more than that? So what's that line of thinking that you had that you can say is something that either you're giving over as coaching or something you would recommend to single parents specifically when it comes to how to find that deeper level of that why?
Well, for me, it was be home with my kids. For some, it could be I want to have this much time with them. You might be on a split schedule. So really, it's going to be different for each person. Like I know we have a split schedule. They're with me sometimes and they're with their dad sometimes. And I'm blessed that they have a great father. He's very involved. He always he wants to have them. He wants to spend time with them. He looks forward to them. He's in communication with them every day. So I know I'm blessed and not everybody has that scenario.
Right.
And also like your why, you may need support. You may need support in finding that and also to maintain that. Like I was a lone wolfer as well. I felt like I needed to do everything on my own. This is my situation. And that didn't help me. That actually kept me stuck. No. And I ended up burning out with trying to build the business, trying to juggle the two jobs and my kids at the same time, where I actually needed to step away. So, and as you said, things change. And your why can change. My kids are getting older. My son is 13. My daughter's 15. They're starting to become more independent. And soon they'll be going off to live their own life and create whatever it is they want for themselves. So my why will pivot. My why won't be, I want to be home with my kids anymore. So what will that next why be for me? So just understanding that, like take action on it because you want to be clear on your why and on whatever it is you want to achieve. But also give yourself grace and flexibility that it could change as you're moving forward and as your kids are evolving and growing as well.
Oh, for sure. And I think change is something that us as parents sometimes have a hard time with because when the kids are smaller, we want to have that consistency. And that's what sort of makes the schedule go and sort of when things run like clockwork, which is important. And also things change. And I think to be consistently okay with things having to be flexible is really important. And I think there's a lot what you're saying is to be okay with that. So having a certain grace of yourself with yourself, that things are going to change and that's okay. But at the same time, there is something that you talk about here, regarding that, I guess what I would call like balancing like the roles that you have of how a single parent has to do things that keep things, whether it's responsibilities at home that you have, that your kids might have, and creating that harmonious family feeling and trying to build a business and ensuring that making sure that each one is not going to be diminished in any way. And I'm curious if you could talk about that regarding making sure that you have those goals and making sure that both things are taken care of at the same time. How do you go about dealing with that personally, and how do you talk about that with others?
I love this conversation, this topic. So thank you for bringing it up because I think it's really important, especially for single parents and moms. I know single parents, both men and women, but I know from moms, we carry a lot of guilt and we put that on ourselves and it can weigh us down. So what I learned is building a business and having small kids and juggling all of that and the responsibility of home and animals. I had 5 animals when this was happening. Now I have 2. So there was a lot I was navigating, but I was always striving because I heard people all the time, work-life balance. And I was going after that. And then I felt like I was always failing. And I always felt like I'm not good enough because I'm always failing. I'm not achieving that work-life balance that everybody's talking about. Well, I was actually talking with someone about self-care. And I said, you know what? I'm throwing this work-life balance, BS out the window because I'm striving for perfectionism. And I already say hi. I always say, hi, my name is Heidi. I'm a recovering perfectionist. Because that's where I was, especially as a single mom. We all the birthday parties had to be perfect. Everything had to be perfect. Like we're trying to keep up with it. So now I'm like, you know what? I'm not doing that anymore. There's a scale and I'm always trying to maintain this balance of this scale to keep it even. And sometimes my business is going to need more of me and it's going to weigh down that side of the scale. Sometimes my kids are going to need more of me and that's going to weigh down the scale on that side. Sometimes I'm going to need more self-care time and time for me. And I'll say that to my kids, like around typically 3:30. Well, when I was we're in the summer now, so I don't have the schedule I had, but it was 4 hours a day of pick up and drop off between the 2 schools and the scattered schedules. And I'm like, I still get to work, So I would come home for 4:30, 5 o'clock from picking up my son. And I'd be like, guys, I need 20 minutes. I need to go lay down. And once I'm done with that, I'll come out and now we can get going with the evening. Like letting your kids be aware of like what's going on. You know what? Mom needs to work till 8:30 tonight. This is the busy day. Mom's working till 8:30. We're going to do dinner at this time. Or, you know what? We're doing easy peasy dinner tonight, and just kind of keeping them in the loop. But I don't call it work-life balance anymore. I call it work-life grace because I want everyone to feel like give yourself grace in those moments instead of taking on that pressure and that guilt of I'm not good and I'm not creating enough time for both of them. I don't have the balance everybody's talking about. Work-life grace. You get to be flexible with yourself. That word again that you brought up early. Flexible is key. Grace is key.
That's great. I love these words that you're saying, and I think changing it from that work-life balance to the work-life grace. I'm going to call you on this, but I think it's such a great line and such a great. There's another part to grace that I think is really important. You started touching on, but maybe you could talk about it a little bit deeper over here. Grace for yourself as a human being, and not just a mom. And I'll curious how that comes into this conversation over here from your father.
Yeah, we're not just moms, we're not just dads, we're people, and we need time for ourselves too. And so whether it's your work, your business, whatever that looks like for you, your home, your animals, your kids, you still get to take care of you, and prioritizing yourself is really, really important. This is one thing that I've struggled with for a long time. It actually held me back in my business too, because I was working so much. And I was like going that I was showing up exhausted all the time. I ended up burning out and stepping away for about a year, if not a little longer. And when I came back, I realized what I did wrong, what wasn't working and what was working. And I quickly, when the second time around, I'm like, okay, I get to definitely change this. And prioritizing self-care was important because if you're not taking care of yourself, and people say, fill your cup. I don't believe in that either. I'm throwing everything out the door right today. Work-life balance, no. Work-life grace, and then replacing the, fill your cup with overflow your cup. Because I feel like if you fill your cup, we're constantly depleting it. But if you're overflowing it by taking care of yourself, you're going to have plenty to give to everybody else. Because many times we have a lot of people or a lot of things that need us at one time. So if we're just filling it every once in a while, it's constantly getting depleted and we're constantly exhausted and run down. Whereas if we're overflowing it and we're prioritizing ourselves, I'm not saying ignore others, but taking care of yourself isn't selfish. It's allowing yourself to be there and support the others in your life, to be there fully present for them. Because if you're depleted, you can't be fully present. So you're not really supporting them in the ways that they need, especially your children.
That's so well said. And I again, I think it's such a great analogy. As someone that I wish there were smart boards when I was in school, just because I'm much more of a visual learner. So using your examples and thinking about that cup, which we talk about all the time, that cup's not full, half empty, fill it up. empty it out, whatever it is you can do with that cup. It's something that comes up all the time. And I think the biggest thing so far that I'm taking out of our conversation is the concept of having a healthy sense of values and purpose. And I'm curious, when we talk about parenting and transmitting those values and purpose and creating a sense of being able to know what our strong ethical values are and how to give that over to our children, especially in a situation where we have a business that we have to run and we're in charge of. How do you go about doing that personally and making sure that there's a healthy balance?
It's a challenge, and it's not easy. I do have conversations with my kids. Is it all the time? No. But I really take the time that we do have and make it quality time. And then during that time, I'll try to, give them some words of wisdom or something. Like last night at dinner, we were talking, their cousins with us, and we were talking about something. And I'm like, remember what I told you about high school, Hunter? And she's like, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I do say that, but that's not what I'm referring to. So I like just having, even if you have 5 minutes with them, it's more quality over quantity. And then letting them know and leading by example, and I'm not perfect. We're far from perfect. We're humans, but I will tell them, listen, I was wrong. Or that conversation didn't go the way I wanted it to go. You know what? Let's revisit that. Or I'll take responsibility when I make a mistake. Or if I handle something wrong, I'll bring that to them as a lesson and go, listen, this happened. Mommy didn't handle it right, but this is how I'm going to fix it correct it going forward. And that helps them know that it's okay to make mistakes. Because if we're always trying to show them that we're perfect, they're going to feel like in life, they're going to have a hard time saying sorry. And I think we want our kids to take responsibility for their actions. Responsibility is key. And I think in today's day and age, that's missing in a lot of people. Like there's no responsibility at the end of the day. It's everybody else's fault for where I am. No, it's either where you are, wherever you are, you created this because every action you took has a consequence, and a consequence isn't bad or good. It's just is. It's a consequence. And I think too many people think of consequences as negative, but a consequence could be a great thing. That's the consequence of your action. So really teaching our kids the value of responsibility and leading by example on that, not being afraid to say to them hey, you know what? Didn't really handle that right. Or I could do better with that next time, and I will. Now, this was what happened. This is the action I took. This was the result. And now I've learned from it. What worked in that scenario, what didn't work. I think that's a powerful tool to teach our kids too. Every day, look at what's school. You get a bad grade. Okay, what worked there? What didn't work? Well, I didn't do my homework, right? I showed up for school. That worked. But I didn't do my homework. So now I got the 0. So that reflects in my grade. So just kind of checking in and doing that, I think is supportive for our kids too. So that's what I try to do. It's not always perfect.
Right. And that's okay. And I think we have to give ourselves some grace in order to make sure that we're doing the things that we have. But I everything that you're saying makes a lot of sense to me. And I think it's hopefully something that people that are listening to this that are not just single parents, but even if it's a 2-parent household can learn from, because I think you are speaking words of wisdom here. I'm curious though, if you were able to give a personal example, when you talk about that scalability, which is so important and something we've talked about this podcast many times, but it's something personal that sort of happened that you can say, this is not something that worked, it did not work. You sort of called yourself out possibly. And then you talk about it with your kids in a way where they were able to see that example for themselves.
That is a great question. I would say in relationships, I don't know if a specific example, but I'm pretty open with my kids, when I'm on the phone talking to people so dating. I'm a single mom, right? And I did dating. I did not bring them into it. Nobody's really I'm not I've dated a lot of people, but I've been very I keep them close, and I have not really involved them in that scenario until I know that this is going to turn into something long term. But they've seen me upset about something that didn't work out. So I shared with them, this is what I sat them down at the table. This is actually not long ago. I sat them down at the table and I said, okay, this is what happened. And they didn't really know about any of it, but I wanted to share with them because they are getting older. They're going to be navigating their own relationships. And right. I want them to know that, you may not have been brought into my relationships. I don't know if that's good or bad. I know there's people that do, and there's people that don't. And I'm not saying one, or if people listening do, I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying what I've chosen to do. And I see the consequences of it. And I think there's consequences on both sides of it. But you got to do what's right for you. So I was like, you know what? They haven't really seen me in a relationship since they were really little with their dad.
Right.
And they're missing out on a big part of like what works and what doesn't work and how to
What a
navigate
healthy relationship looks like.
what a healthy relationship looks like. And I'm like, okay, that's not the good part of me holding them close to keeping them close to me and not allowing someone in. So I shared with them the situation that happened, and I shared with them what my part of it was, and that I take responsibility for that piece of it, and that this is how I'm going to be better going forward in relationships, right? And that I want them to, and I want to be open with them when I do date someone again, that I can be open with them and have those conversations, because I shared, I don't think you know what a healthy relationship looks like. And I want you to have that, because if you don't have that, I'm not setting you up for success for yourself in the future.
So beautiful. I love that example. And something that else I was thinking about as you're saying that is, I think something that your kids see is you talk about, which, as you said, you're very blessed to have a relationship with your ex, with their father, that is on the healthier side, and something that, he wanting to be involved in, and your kids see that, and your kids really bring that inside for what healthy relationships. I mean, you can be in a healthy relationship. It doesn't mean it has to be something it's spouses being in a healthy relationship. If anything, it could be ex-spouses, but still have a good relationship, which is an anomaly, unfortunately. So just be able to have that, your kids see that and they pick up on that, and how you're going to be dealing with things and how their dad deals with things. Something I talk about in my office as a psychotherapist is when we're dealing with a situation where there are going to be two family households, how are each of the people going to be treating each other in the households? And that's a very, very big topic, because being able to have a healthy relationship and not batting off the other person, trying to treat them with respect, even though you might not get the respect, I think is really important when it comes to a lesson to be taught. And I think that opening up, and then third thing, what you were saying, what I was saying, is also the concept of just being open. And we can't talk about this and talk about relationships, talk about our emotions and feelings, which is something, obviously, as a therapist, I'm doing all the time. But as a parent, I think it's something that I could for sure really work on, just being able to, to be open and, talk about struggles, like you were saying, and having something to be able to feel comfortable to talk with our kids, age appropriately, obviously,
right?
That you were able to talk about. And just my one comment regarding what you're saying, how to talk to kids regarding relationships and stuff, is to be mindful of not turning it into something where they're involved in everything. We're like, Mom, I don't think you should go out with this type of guy next time because of what you said to us last time. To be careful of that, for kids to know what their place is. Sometimes they might cross the boundaries, and for parents to be mindful of that kids might do that. We don't want to turn into a situation where they're not controlling your phone and your dating apps and who you're going to be meeting with, because that's not the way that it's
blocking people on your phone, which has happened to me. My daughter blocked someone, and I'm like, okay, you're not allowed on my phone. It's my phone.
Right.
But and just like having those I just think you talk to so many families, and so many, like, communication is the key of it. And I think no matter what it is, if you're uncomfortable with having the conversation, then they're going to grow up uncomfortable with having the conversation. Just like in my day, there was things that, I, probably would be better with if we had more communication around that topic. So just having that, letting your kids know that there's an open door. I let my kids know about that, because there's so many different things now that they have access to, all the social media, all the apps. And, I try to stay on with them and have that open communication with their phone. At the same time, we just can't always be with our kids and know what they're doing and what they're watching. But if you can just let them know, like, hey, if you have a question, it doesn't matter what it's about, you can come to me. I'm never going to get mad. I just want you to know that we're here for you. And me and their dad, like, even though we're in separate households, I can call him and talk to him and say, hey, listen, we need to have a conversation. And he can do that the same with me. We get together and we talk to the kids. And that is part of what I think, reason why I'm blessed. I have two great kids, but that I came from a divorced household. So that was one of the things when I was moving through divorce myself, I was surprised about. I didn't expect to. None of us expect to. I really wanted to make sure that they came from the two of us were healthy, so that they can grow up feeling secure no matter who they were with. We weren't bad-mouthing each other. We weren't, throwing each other under the bus, and that no matter what the punishment or the consequence was, that we were on the same team about it. I've called him when something happens. I call him and say, hey, this is what's going on. and this is the punishment, this is the consequence. Are you on board with it? And he's like, absolutely. We're united.
Right. So it's amazing how every single conversation I end up having comes down to communication is key,
Yeah.
and making sure that we're happy that proper communication, and whether it's for their dad, whether it's for talking about relationships and bringing them to the table to talk about things. And at the same time, you're dealing with two teenagers at home, and teenagers, as much as we love them, the way I like talking about them is sometimes we need to learn to like them as much as we love them, because it can be really hard. And I'm curious how you go about dealing with that, because you're also, you have a business that you're running 24/7, 365 on your own. So there are so many things to balance, but yet you're also wanting to have a relationship with them. So how do you go about doing that and making sure that their needs are met, but yet also the business is being taken care of, because you have a lot on your plate at the same time?
Yeah, this is such a good question, because I actually was just taught. I think I put this out there to my social media at one point. I'm like, okay, I need help. I am in a new territory with my teenagers, my teenage daughter especially. I don't know what to do. I'm beating my head against the wall, and I feel like I'm drowning over here. Nothing matters, right? No consequence matters, right? And I have a boy and a girl. Like I said, my son's 13, my daughter's 15. And they're both amazing humans, just like your children are amazing humans. But am I the only one where the girl to girl dynamic is much different than the, mom son dynamic, and that we're just gonna, I don't know what it is, but we butt heads. And it's like I'm motivating her is on sometimes a whole new level for me. So I don't have that answer, unfortunately, because I'm going through it myself. So any support that I can get, I just take it day by day. And I do, when I flip my lid, which I have at certain times, I'll go to her and say, listen, I apologize. I flipped my lid. But I've asked you 75 times. So finally I'm at the point where am I breaking, but I could have handled it differently. And she'll come to me and say, I'm sorry, mommy. And we have the communication, the conversation.
Right.
But I'm still navigating that myself. So I don't have that answer. It's just a matter of I take it day by day, and I share with her like the consequences. Okay, so if you keep doing it this way, then this is what's going to happen, right? Like, and I'm not always going to be there for you. We're here to catch you right now. But also I'm learning from the people, my friends that have gone through this. They're like, sometimes you got to let them fall. You got to let them fall for them to learn. Like if we keep saving them, as much as it kills me, and I'm like reaching out to teachers and I'm trying to get the work turned in late or whatever it is, it's not helping her learn the lesson that she needs to learn.
Sure. And I'm so glad you brought that up. And my wife and I were just dealing with this, just my daughter bringing down the laundry basket down to the laundry room. And like, she not having clean clothes, or really, like, you don't have clean clothes. Why not? Well, because you didn't do my laundry. Like, why didn't we do your laundry? Because you didn't have my laundry basket. Why not? So when she finally like murmurs in our laundry basket, because you didn't bring down your laundry. It's a very simple thing. We're not asking you to do the laundry, fold it or anything. Just bring it down from your room to the laundry room, so then you can go ahead and do that. I think that's what you're saying, is now she has to wait for that sweatshirt she wanted to wear. She has to wait until the next time laundry is going to be done. So it's on her in a certain way. And I think that in itself is a responsibility thing. So as you're talking to your daughter, and I love the way you're saying it, this concept of the way I always see it this way, of the Jerry Maguire line of help me help you.
I've said that to her. I'm like, help me help you.
Exactly. And I think when you put it on the other person to say, I'm struggling right now, I don't know how to deal with this, and this needs to get done, or this needs to happen, and I'm at a loss. So what am I supposed to do? So here, take that, and now deal with that. And now that's something where the person's like, well, I don't want to hold on. This is a hot potato. I don't want to hold on. This is what do I need to do? Oh, you have to hand in your work. I have to hand in my work time. That's what I need to do. Oh, that's it. Okay, fine, I'll do it. So when they go ahead and say it, I think that really changes so much, because as we talk about dealing with teenagers, I think there's so many things to talk about, and I'm very passionate on this topic specifically, is because they're working on the concepts of identity, self-identity, working on the concepts of autonomy, and they have control over things that they never really had control over before a certain way, because they didn't realize it, and because they're coming from a good home. So all of a sudden, like, I'm supposed to navigate and do certain things for myself. Like, really? And it can be scary. And I think that's where our role is, to be in a place to be able to go ahead and say, I'm here for you, and you have to do this yourself. So I'm here for you, but I'm not going to do it for you. And I think that there's very, very fine line And I'm curious specifically when it comes to entrepreneurship, there's a certain level of business owning as well, where you want to be able to do everything yourself, but you have to also delegate in a certain way of this person needs to do this person needs to do this, and this is part of the role of whatever the business is.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go about, I guess you could say, those same type of roles of teaching that to your kids and working on that as a parent, but yet also doing that as a business owner?
Well, as a business owner, it's more for me is with my clients. I'm like, I want them to get the results, but I can only do so much. I can't do it for them. And that's a big challenge that I find sometimes. It's like the ones that, we all have in business, and especially if you're a coach, we all have those people. They'll join and then they just don't do anything. And I'm the one that wants to be like, well, if you do the work, you'll get it. You'll achieve it. But I can only do so much for that. And I think that's one of the hardest things for me is that I want everybody to succeed, but I also can't make them show up and I can't make them do the work. And I think that's like goes over into our children. Like I think as parents, we all want more for them than we had or that we accomplished. But at the end of the day, because we love them and we've seen what we've gone through and the challenges that we've overcome, and we want to take that away from them. But like just giving them money or just giving them everything doesn't allow them to have the failures now when we're there to pick them up and help scrape their knees off and put the Band-Aid on. Like with their relationships, like we get to be there now when those things don't work out so they can learn from them and grow. And I think if we're trying to give them everything and do everything for them, then when they do go to college or they do move out and they're moving into that next chapter of their life, they're not ready for the world. And they're like, oh my gosh, wait a minute. I've never failed before. I don't even know how to handle this. And then they're not prepped and prepared. I thought recently about teaching my kids how to do laundry because I was doing laundry at 9. So this is I love that you brought up the laundry. I was doing the whole entire household laundry at 9. So I resented laundry growing up. And I was like, I'm not going to make my kids do that. Like I hated it. I'm not going to make my kids do it. But lately I've been like, and I love that you tell your daughter, like, I didn't even think of that. This is the day that you bring your stuff down by. If you don't bring it down, I'm not chasing you. I'm not going up to get it. It's not done. Or you want it that bad, do your load of laundry,
Sure.
So
and
I love that. I love that you said that.
I've actually taken my daughter to the laundry room and be like, so let me show you what to do. And she's looking at me like, I'm teaching her like some dissecting a frog in 6th grade or something. It's disgusting. It's really not that disgusting. It's turning this knob, taking this pod, putting it in here and just turning it on. You want to read a label first. You have what you do. Let's do that. Most things are, we know what they're supposed to be,
right.
But just there's a little bit of science regarding dark colors and light colors. And that's, there's not much to it,
right.
In that sense. And I think, and if you do it in a way where I'm trying to teach you or help you something, so you don't have to come to me, because if you come to me on a Saturday night, wear my sweatshirt, I'm not doing the laundry for you. That's not, it's not happening. It's like there's a 0% chance. But if you need it for you going out with your friends, then let me show it to you so you can do it yourself. And I think that's that it takes away something that they're trying to sort of put onto you, but we're trying to teach them in a way where okay, you know what? The answer is me. I am the answer, and I can do things in a certain way. And I think as we're trying to let them be the best versions of themselves, I say those words very carefully because it's not our best version.
Right.
It's their best versions of themselves.
Yeah.
I think that's something to be aware of so that we can make sure that they're getting what they need. And what they need from me is to be supportive. When they need from me is to tell that, mom and dad, we're always here for you. And and you can always come to us. The best line I think I ever heard of this, and I heard this from a mentor of mine, is you want to create a world where instead of them saying, I don't want my mom to find out about this, it turns into, I can't wait to tell mom.
Yeah.
And that's the world we want our kids to live in, where they're not necessarily hiding anything from us. We're like, oh, mom, Derek just sent me an amazing picture. You want to see it? So instead of it being something like, oh, I can't show this to my mom type thing. So, and that's the world we want our kids to be in. And that's only going to happen if we teach them. So it's up to us, to not only bring the horse to water, but maybe at the beginning when they're a certain age, showing the horse, well, you do this by the water. And then as they get older, like, all right, there's the water. So you have to go find it yourself in a certain way, but knowing that balance. And I think for parents that are listening to this is to realize that every horse is different and the water level is different in different places. And our job as parents is to make sure that we know how to teach that child that situation for what they need. at the same time as we talk about this, and I love the way this conversation is going regarding these topics, I think there's also, I think you were talking about this before a little bit, the concept of also having an understanding that there are other people or other things needed in me being the best version of myself. I say the concept of community and having support systems around you. And I'm curious, both as a business owner and also as a parent, how do you go about teaching that, and how do you deal with that in yourself?
Yeah, I want to touch on one thing you said, because I think for many parents, like what I said, I'm like, I don't want my kids to go through that and have to do all the laundry for everybody. But now I think I'm taking away something from them, that they're going to be empowered, that like the things that we could be teaching them and allowing them to have that independence over is empowering them to build up their confidence in other things. Because once they learn, like, oh, I don't need mom to do my sweatshirt, to wash my sweatshirt, they're going to feel so good when they've washed it themselves and they know that they can go down there and do it. And they also learn, like, don't put the reds with the whites because you're going to have pink underwear, So those are the things that they learn before they get to college, and then they freak out and they're like, oh my gosh, I have red underwear. Or pink underwear. As far as it goes around building support, I think it's really important no matter where you are. Hi, my name is Heidi. I'm a recovering lone wolfer as well as perfectionist. I always felt like I needed to do it on my own. I always felt like, you know what, I don't want anybody to see me as weak, and I'm going to be, pull out my masculine, and as a woman, we get to that's a scary balance. That's a teetering, I don't know what we call it, but that we can easily fall off into and be so masculine driven that we're missing out on the other aspects. And I don't want to teach my daughter that either. So allowing her to see me ask for support is not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength. And I think when we're asking for support as far as like family members, or I don't have much family here anymore. So because they've all moved, but they do come visit and they're always here. But even just calling someone and venting, like, just, hey, when I'm struggling with this with my teen, this is what's happening. I know you went through this. Do you have any advice for me? Like, it doesn't even have to be like physical support, but it could be just emotional support in the moment, and asking for help. So you don't have to feel like you're on this island by yourself and alone is really important. Same thing with, especially as, whether you're in a relationship, whether it's two parents in a home or single parents, I think it works both ways. Like, even asking each other for support. And that is sometimes where maybe the divorces, the separation starts happening in relationships. I know that's not this conversation, but even just asking for support amongst your person, your partner, and just saying, hey, I'm feeling really alone. I feel like I'm the stay-at-home mom doing all the stuff. And, I know you're tired, but can you let me know how we can navigate this so I can feel supported and not feel like I'm always on my own with this. So even doing it in that type of scenario. And in business, it's also like, in business, we definitely getting support, joining community and at parenting communities, right? Even joining your local parent. I mean, we have an app called Nextdoor. There's a lot of people that you can ask, hey, I'm new to the area, or we're parents of teenagers and we'd love to get out with other parents of teenagers so we don't feel like we're alone, because we're navigating this new chapter of our world. Like, I'm used to raising, elementary students. Now I'm moving into this kind of space, like just kind of putting yourself out there. And, for single parents, join single parenting communities, local and online. I think it's important to have that interaction face to face. Yeah, as well as the online communities. Same thing in business. If I'm talking to you right now and you have a business, my dog's going to bark. Having a business, and reach out to online communities and get support, get mentorship, but also find communities with people that are doing what you're doing or where you want to be, so you feel like you're not lone wolfing this.
That's great. I think that's such a good example. And I talk about making sure that there is community. And I think, to your point exactly, that there's an online world that is great, and there's an in-person world that is also very, very necessary and really, really good. And we need to make sure that we're doing the best for us in a situation. And I think when our kids also see that, hey, mom has a community, mom has things that she does, not just on her own, she's doing it with and around others. Our kids can see that as well. We talk about it in like the trauma world. When we talk about treatment of trauma, we talk about the concepts of most traumas happen to us because of our relationships. And the way we heal from traumas is through relationships.
Yeah, that's
so one of the best things we can do in general is to show that relationships are essential. They are key. They are vital to who we are and being the best versions of us, and our kids to see that, after you can be able to model that. I think that's something that is so important, and there are so many different things out there that we're not tied down to just say, well, I Google and Facebook sent me to single parents. Well, maybe a little more specific. Maybe put the state that you live in. Maybe put in the community that you live in.
Exactly. Yes.
Do something that is really important or really beneficial to you for what you need. It might be from a certain culture, religion, background, whatever it is, that we want to be able to have. It's so important just to know that there are things out there and find them, look for them. Back in the day, we might say, go look at the yellow pages, but right now we're saying, go look online and, find that thing that is for you. I think that's really important. I'm so glad that you're able to bring that up.
Yeah. And you're actually seeing, I don't know if this is going to be videoed, but you're seeing it's summer here. My kids are home. My office, the internet's not that great. Because of everybody's home from summer now. So the bandwidth is fixed. So I'm in a room where I know that I'm going to have this, capability to be here with you, but my son is letting the dogs in and out, like behind me. So this is how, this is the beauty of having those open communication, all of that. It's just this is my world. Sure. And just being open and having that community is huge. I love that you brought up community, because I think it's extremely important.
So there's one other thing I want to talk about. But to be honest, most of the time when I'm having these conversations, I don't necessarily really bring it up. I just hearing the way you're talking about certain things, I feel comfortable at least bringing it up and how we can sort of bring this into the conversation. Obviously, as an entrepreneur, but I think more importantly as a parent, and maybe even a single parent, when we talk about spirituality and religion. And I think that does play a role in many ways, both personally and as a parent. And I'm curious, just based on your journey and where you've been, how has that been something that's been helpful, and how is that something that you've been able to give over to your kids? Do you want to give over to your kids? And maybe a message regarding how you talk about it in the coaching world as well.
Yeah, I when it comes to my business, I don't talk a lot about spirituality. It's more business oriented. But I am spiritual. I'm Catholic, actually. And my kids have both gone through some of the sacraments. The next one we will move them through as well. But do I let them have choice? I do. We talk about a lot of different things when we need to or when it comes up. They were in private school. They were in Catholic school prior to the divorce. And then shortly after the divorce, they were moved into, my daughter homeschooled. She virtual schooled for a while. And then she moved into the public school and then back into virtual. She is now back in brick and mortar for high school because I want her to have those experiences. My son was in public school. So they don't get it as much as they used to. But we're still open about it, and we still we want them to, it is part of our life. It is part of our life. And it has been since they were little. But I also want them to be open to experiencing what else is out there and make their own decisions as far as when they become adults, where they want to go and what they want to do. But I do talk about, practicing gratitude and meditation and things like that. They're not in that space yet. They think it's a little woo-woo, some of the stuff, but I share it with them because I want them to have a well-rounded, idea of what's out there. And then they can ask questions because they're going to see it. They're going to hear about it anyway. So then they can come to us, and I'm not going to say, well, we're Catholic, you have to stay on this. I'm actually more Christian than I love the Christianity as a whole. So we open up those doors for them to make their own choices.
And how is their dad with religion personally within himself? And is this something that he brings into everything well?
Their dad?
Yeah.
Yeah, he is Catholic as well. So we'll for Easter, for the holidays, we're probably not the practicing, every Sunday, but for the holidays, we'll get together, we'll go as a family. And Christmas, we celebrate as a family. So there's things that we make sure we do to stay connected. So the kids feel that we're still on a united front. And nobody's excluded. So that's how we do things. But yeah, he's Catholic, but he's still on the same page. We want them to experience things. Right. At the end of the day, we want them to know right from wrong and to be, they get to make their own decisions. Because I don't think whatever religion you're in, I think there's right and wrong. And it doesn't matter what your beliefs are, there's right and wrong. And you get to share that for your family. And hopefully the children are learning from us. And again, it comes back to that communication. I'll share with them, you know what, I didn't do the right thing there. That was wrong. Mom didn't handle that properly, but I'm going to, do this going forward.
I love that. And I think the thing that you were saying of just for them to be able to ask questions and to feel comfortable so that they can feel and experience things at home. And
Yeah.
then if they have questions regarding what they want to do or how they want to go about things, you and their dad have been able to plant seeds that has been beneficial for them to be able to, as their tree grows for themselves, be able to, oh wait, there's a religious part to this as well, but we can sort of use to our advantage. All right, what is that? What is that? And they can be curious. And I think something that I talk about in my office a lot is like, well, the ABC, always be curious. And when we have we have that curious bone inside of us, I think that goes a really long way regarding our kids being the best version of themselves. And I think this conversation, I've been so happy, Heidi, the way you're able to talk about the topics that we talked about, and also I think the guidance that you've given us here. And I know that you've created some sort of model when it comes to entrepreneurship and in the business world that I think, at least to the way you're talking, for sure has been cultivated from the home and your own personal philosophy. Curious if you could talk about it for what it is that you have going on.
I basically teach visibility, being seen. It was a big challenge for me inside of my business when I got started. I had a fear of being seen that stemmed from my childhood, from, like you said, the experiences, that we have as children. And it's something that I needed to overcome. So now my passion is to teach entrepreneurs how to get comfortable with getting uncomfortable, stepping out of their comfort zone, because no matter what level you are in business, you're going to be getting out of your comfort zone, and the fear is going to show up and it's going to get scary. So that being said, that's what I have. That's my passion right now. And we have a visibility program that we just started. So that's brand new, which is exciting. We also have the academy, where if you are an entrepreneur and you want to, you're kind of in the scaling mode, you're at the 6-figure mark, but you're ready to take your business to the next level. We have an upper level program where we work with you on building team and everything else, as far as like creating your offer, stepping up and being visible in a new way. So we help people get on podcasts and branch out and create community and collaboration, because there's a lone wolfing way of building a business and there's a collaborative way of building a business. And I did the lone wolf way. It doesn't work. You're going to probably go out of business quicker than you want to. Luckily for me, I quickly realized it and I learned to collaborate. So leveraging other people's stages, getting in front of other people's audience, and building those relationships. Like you said, everything's about relationships. And like you and I having this conversation, and we never know where this could take us down the road with this relationship. But just kind of putting yourself out there and building those relationships is key in building a business, because when people want to work with you, it starts with you building that relationship between you and that person.
Oh, for sure. And I think being able to do that, I think is really important. I met, obviously, as a parent, working on that and being able to work on that relationship has an effect on where you are regarding business. So I'm so glad that we've been able to have discussion. I've been able to meet you after the first time and that this actually did work. I'm curious, as we sort of close up over here, I have a few small rapid fire questions for you as a mom.
Okay.
But before we go there, my last question to you is there something that we didn't talk about regarding this whole amazing world and conversation regarding parenting, single parenting, and how to be able to hone those skills also as an entrepreneur? Are there things we didn't talk about that might be something that I want to mention for like a minute or two?
I think we talked about so many great things. I will say, when you just asked me this question, the one thing that I came up for both situations is let's release judgment. Many parents can have an idea of what's right and wrong based on what's right for them. And then if somebody else is doing it the opposite, that's wrong. And we get to give each other, let's bring that word back in, give each other grace as parents. We don't get a manual. None of us are perfect. We're going to make mistakes raising our kiddos, and it's okay. But let's give each other grace as adults and as parents, and be supportive of each other and come together as community, and not pushing someone out and going, well, they're doing this wrong. Just because I don't do it this way doesn't mean that the way somebody else is doing it is wrong. It's right for them.
I love that. Thank you so much for bringing that up, because I talk about this concept of non-judgmentalism all the time. And I think it starts with the self. And you first have to be non-judgmental on yourself before you be non-judgmental on what your kids are doing, try to make a voice for themselves, or how we're going to give it over to our clients in our business as well. So that's such a great point, and thank you for bringing that up over here. As we sort of wrap over here, I like sort of asking you some questions over here. So my first question to you is, now that your kids are teenagers, it doesn't really apply, but I'm thinking of, let's say you have your Southern age version of your kids. You could think of a historical figure that you would like to, or you feel comfortable to be a babysitter for your kids. Who would that be?
Historical figure to be a babysitter for my kid. Oh my goodness. I was going to think of a character, but I can't. That's not a historical figure. Oh gosh,
Well, who is that character? I'm curious.
Mary Poppins. Because I'd want her to be I would want her to be my babysitter. I'm like, that is the best babysitter in the world, right? She's magical, she's fun, but she's also strict, but with love, you know? So I think she's phenomenal.
And singing.
That's not a figure, like historical figure.
Right.
I know my son would love to have Alexander Hamilton. I know he would love to have him. He loves him. He loved the show. He learned all about him. And so that, you know, I know that he would love to meet him. And I think he would, you know, and he loved his kids. And he, you know, so I think that he would be a kind of a cool figure. I'm sure there's people out there that disagree with me. But politics aside, I think I know my son would love to have him.
All right. That sounds great. I love that answer. We never got on that one before. So that's a really good one. Heidi, is there any either book, podcast, or YouTube video that you listened to or watched recently on this topic that you've been talking about that you would recommend to others than someone other than your own stuff?
As far as like the books, I really like, I wish I could think of the name of this book. It did a lot for me. But like The Untethered Soul is a great book. The Alchemist, that's a fantastic book. I'll share
all ages. It's a good one. Yeah. I love that. That's really great. And my last question to you here, Heidi, is if you can think of an everyday, mundane superpower that you would like to have as a mom, what would that be?
Cook.
Amazing.
I would love to just be able to walk into my pantry and my refrigerator and whip something amazing up based on what I have. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. Well, I love it. Well, thank you so much again for your time. This has been an absolute pleasure.
You're welcome.